Hi, it's Susan. I just thought I would record something as I felt inspired to do it. So I might meditate because it's an interesting day. There's a lot of wind outside. Just thinking about the fires in the United States that just came to me now. Climate change. Earthquakes. The real power of nature. So I might just go still for a little bit for fun. Really, the still point's just resting or reclining in Buddha is the way it appears to me. And well, who was the Buddha? Siddhartha? Gautama? I don't know if I'm saying that right. See, I just get straight away an image of Nepal, where he came from. I've forgotten the name of the place. I've actually been past where he was born. He was actually born in Nepal. The word might come to me later. I'm now seeing Asia and Buddhism. Which was the basis of the social harmony there. That's why Asian people are very lovely. We see very kind, forgiving. It's because their culture had a foundation in Buddhism. Yeah, the kids that were able to survive in the cave was because of the young man who had been trained in Buddhism, which is common in Thailand for kids to learn about Buddhism. I think they at least do 1 year in Buddhism. Whereas this boy, from my understanding of what I briefly saw, was actually had been doing it for quite a long time. So he kept them calm. So it shows you that Buddhism, in the midst of a crisis or an understanding of inner stillness, will assist you through a crisis. It's not in the thinking mind that we solve problems. It's actually in the stillness, which is relaxation, letting go of needing to know. That's the point. Letting go of control is where answers come. That's why control doesn't work. It might temporarily organise and order things. And there's a compliance with that, but it's not a willing compliance. Control uses fear in order to get people to do what it wants. To get B to do what A wants would be the way it's done in all the leadership manuals. A has power over B because B believes it's powerless, and that's how it works. Buddhism is about inner power. See, Falun Gong just came to my mind, inner power. Falun Dafa, such a threat to the Chinese government, they thought. When it's martial art that's been in existence for thousands of years as a healthy modality in order to restore harmony, of which China, the Chinese culture, has actually arisen traditionally from meditation. Tai Chi is a moving meditation. I'm getting moving lines and non-moving lines, which is the Chinese trigrams in the I Ching, Book of Changes is what it's called. It's very interesting, isn't it, when you think that was originated with yarrow sticks, the trigrams. There's 64 trigrams in the whole I Ching. And so what they used to do is use 3 yarrow sticks and throw them on the ground. I believe it was 3. And that's how they formulate the trigrams, I'm guessing. Don't know how they got the moving and non-moving lines into the trigram, though. So I'm not quite sure how that works, but I know it works with coins. People will use heads and tails from coins in order to have moving and non-moving lines. The even number, so heads, is the moving lines, and the tails is the broken lines. So you might ask 6 questions, and the I Ching will give you a trigram of which there is an overall answer. It's a bit like tarot cards. It's not unlike. So it just shows you that whole mysticism that's travelled the world. And then if you get a moving line, there's an specific answer to the question. It's quite interesting. And so obviously this opens the mind to the unseen. This is where we're not in control, because the unseen is, in all traditions, particularly religions, is the all-knowing consciousness. Some might call it, others call it creator, others might call it God. Some will call it luck, chance, gambling. See, the gambling gets that feeling of, oh, what's going to happen? I'll throw the coins and then I win money. So the objective behind the throwing of the coins is to win. Whereas when you throw coins in the I Ching, the objective is to know the truth. That's the difference. And that's the difference between the casino type marketplace and those who actually want to know the truth, the true path. So they're, in a sense, not believing that the money, making the money is going to give them what they want, is their path. Meaning they believe they control their path. That's why they gamble. They want the money so they can control their path. Whereas in the mystical tradition, we're open to being shown the truth of our path rather than forcing it. You live in uncertainty, which is the unknown, because you're open to how the path unfolds. But when you're in a control paradigm, you've mapped out your goals, your objectives. You're going in this direction, and this is how we bring everybody along with us. Get everybody on board because there's something more for us in this. That's how it plays. They're all games. I'm just going to go still for a bit and see what else comes into my inspiration. Yes, there was an insight I had this morning, which was you are me in a different frequency. It even rhymes. I like that. So what does it mean, you are me in a different frequency? Let me explain frequency first. There is a continuum with the frequency coming from the base frequency, which is our negative feelings and thoughts and emotions. As we get higher up in frequency, there's a commensurate feeling of empowerment, and we go to places like you might have a wishful thinking, you might be slightly hopeful, you might feel compassion, you might feel love. It's actually in far more forms, that continuum. But ultimately what the description here is the heavier frequency get control with, bandwidth, is lower. It's denser as well. I can see humor in that. So it's not very smart to be negative. Interesting words. Maybe being smart comes from being negative. Maybe. So As you lift in frequency, you get lighter, and that's what the enlightenment means. The enlightenment is you're getting lighter as you're getting higher. And as you're getting higher, you're feeling lighter. Because you think about it, when you're laughing, you feel very light-hearted. If you have a really good laugh with a friend, it's great. When you see something really funny, your energy lifts. And that's because it's getting lighter. There's more, the word oxygen comes to mind, but it's really about space. Things become lighter. So you're not as dense the more loving you are. And that's, so what does that mean, not as dense? I'm just going to go there for fun of it. You don't feel as heavy. You feel unlimited. You feel expansive because you're loving everything. You're not resisting anything. All negativity is a form of resistance. All conflict is resistance. That's why many people have sought to inspire a love-based consciousness, which is to make you feel lighter, happier. Happiness is very much high on that scale. For me, happiness is probably close to the top, because when you're really at peace, you feel incredibly happy, is how it really works. Just going to go quiet. There's nothing you need to do. Just be. There's a great freedom in doing nothing. People can say, oh, you're lazy, you're doing nothing. In some of the spiritual teachings, what they're really saying by doing nothing is that you're not the driver. Things get done, but they're not done with a stress level. They're not done with I should or I have to. You just let it happen when it happens. Things get done. So it's automatic. Nature's the same. Nature's not a doing. It's a being. Literally so. The biggest lessons I feel are to let go. As I've done with letting go of income, the fear of not enough, which is what drove the economic system. Famine also drove that. So I guess the climate, depending on when you live in the world, has had a major impact on what we've created. Because we believe in our own mortality, we seek to keep ourselves alive, which is an instinct in any case. Our bodies will go into automatic pilot to keep us safe. It's a very deeply ingrained instinct. And insecurity, I'm just feeling that breeze. It's pretty strong. It's great. I went for a walk in it. I really enjoyed it. But it'd be interesting to know about the whole system, what is creating that. Oh, don't mind me. Yawning. I'm very peaceful at the moment. So to be is to be free. The freedom is the 0 point, which is the stillness. The doing is the busyness. It's schedules, it's work, it's organisation. There's things you have to do, children to get off to school, business meetings to have, Skype calls to meet. The world is incredibly busy. It's getting faster and faster. There's an infinite amount of things to do. The information society, which is now called, is it? Well, we know it's IT. Just want to go there for a sec. It's the leisure society is where I was going. Information technology was to create the leisure society, which was to give us more leisure time. But that's not what happened. It actually sped up. We had much less time, in actual fact. Too many things to do. So you kind of get lost in the doing and time just goes very fast. Time slows down. I'm just going to reflect before I speak. When does it slow down? Strangely enough, I was going to say in being more still, but in actual fact, what do I feel? I'm able to do more when I go more still. But I might work till 11 o'clock tonight if I feel like it. I sort of let go of, I need to get this done, I need to get that done, because I can be very driven. It's to do with passion with me. And I can focus on something and decide I'm going to do something. But I am allowing myself to shift from it if I choose to. I'm going far more with the flow now, which can look like moving from one thing to another. But if you have a holistic sort of awareness, it all roads lead to Rome would be the way I would assess that. Eventually, you find that all those things were actually not separate parts, but actually part of the whole. You might be thinking you're going off on a tangent, and how is that relevant to what you're doing here? But you'll find once you travel that path, if you just allow it, the other activity you were doing is actually part of it. I get really amazed. I'll actually share with you experience I had. I found out there was a national homelessness conference on, which was this week. Found out a few weeks ago, I think. Obviously, I googled homeless and found it. Anyway, I asked the conveners of the conference if I could come for free, obviously, because I'm homeless. You know, you're going to have a conference on homelessness. You should at least have one homeless person there, or person without a home, as they stated at the conference. Those who were in lived experience, which is those who have experienced it. So there was a bit of a delay around that, and eventually she got back to me and she gave me one day. It's a 2-day conference. And so I thought, great, this will be really interesting. I'm going to meet all the people who are actually dedicated to coming together to end homelessness, is what their objective is. I'm only pausing because I'm getting a picture of what I'm wanting to say to you. So anyway, I was actually the first person up at the conference. Like, I'll just backtrack. They had a speaker introducing the conference. Homelessness Australia. And 800 people were in the audience. I was in the second row from the front, which is normal for me. I'd even get into the front row if it wasn't for the speakers. I like being up the front. It's really funny if you go to any sort of lecture, people avoid the front because they don't want the person who's speaking to point them out. I don't have any fear around that because I don't expect them to point me out, but I like to be up close where the action is. Anyway, I sat in the second row, and then they asked if anybody had any questions, and everyone, of course, you know what people are like, they all quiet. No, I'm not putting my hand up first, because this is the first person to speak at the conference. So who gets up but me? Hand goes up. Big. I felt moved to do it though. I follow my inner feeling, and the feeling I had within me was I need to help frame this conference because they believed it was about, not enough housing, essentially. Inadequate housing, not enough housing, unaffordable housing. Whereas not trying to be necessarily opposite to what they're saying, I can only come from my own perspective, which is pretty much untarnished by the other perspectives because I'm not in the industry. I'm not in the homelessness industry. I'm just in the experience of what it's like to live without a home and without income. Now, no one in that room would be living without income for sure, and those in lived experience who've been homeless would have had income on some level. So I'm a little bit unique, and I don't think they understood, and they didn't for sure, what it is to live without money. I mean, money, a little bit comes, but we're talking no more than $50 a week to live on, and people go, that's not possible. Well, I've done it. Anyway, I stood up, and the first thoughts that came into my mind was kindness. I'm just going to go into stillness for a second. I also talked about friends and family, and the one friend that I've got that actually has been checking in with me. Other friends, I've made a lot of friends over the years, but there's no sight nor sound of them. I do move around, admittedly, and I'm not always in contact with people. But nonetheless, what my point was to the audience is that people get isolated. Social isolation is a big issue, and in fact, the big issue is the right word. That's precisely why the big issue is out there. It's telling the stories of the homeless and also interesting stories. I've seen some interesting stuff in there to show them as real people because they've been isolated on the basis of perceptions that aren't true. It's a little bit like the greenies when they were demonized. They call them the greenies. Oh, look at the look at the hippies. When they were seeking to create a narrative around environmental responsibility, they were demonized. I've seen this before. The unemployed definitely are demonized. Bludger, that word bludger, which is an Australian colloquialism, is used to say that you're just sponging off the system. It's to make you feel guilty for taking money, which is inherent within an economic system designed to enable social stability. It's actually the sign of a civilized society too, is to ensure that everybody has enough. And certainly there are many countries around the world that I visited where there is no social security, and others might argue that, well, see, they survive. That's because their families have a lot of love for them and they look after them, and there's no shame staying at home. Whereas in a Western culture, you live with your mother? What's wrong with you? There would be a shame around any sort of family support. We tend to have an attitude of you have to be self-reliant, stand up on your own 2 feet, get out there. This has come from the Second World War type mentality in Western society. Do it for yourself. And that's part of that economic paradigm, or what I've often termed as the Protestant work ethic, which is another form of manipulation to get you to work. Because you have to be forced in order for it to happen, because you don't want to do it. So these stereotypical attitudes are formulated in order to make it very uncomfortable for you to do anything other than work. Even the mothers, years ago I remember the shifting political mood around mothers, and it was to do with Christianity. It was during the John Howard years, and there was a narrative of women should stay at home, and that was keep them under control. And then it shifted to, no, you need to go to work, put the kids in childcare, quick, There's an industry there as well. And yet the best thing for children would be, to be with their parents, of course. In fact, the children in childcare centres call the carers, the educators, they're called mum. Some of them call them mum. They see the educator far more than their own mother. That says a lot about an economic paradigm that wants everybody working a lot. I always had the idea of why not have everybody work part-time and have job share, which would be full-time employment, and have them paid at 3/4 of the full-time wage. So that social aspect of who we are is looked after, and the economic aspect of needing to generate income in order to pay bills and what have you is looked after. It's called balance, but what we've got is it tipped in the direction of economic activity, because people can take their laptops home, they've got their iPhones, so they can get messages. They're not actually disconnected at all. So there's no real downtime for them, no real rest. The global basic income, of course, is, in my view, a necessity, but I can see that there will be attitudes in powerful positions who do not want that, because they do not want people having leisure. They do not want people getting together and discussing what's going on. They want them distracted, because there is, agendas behind all of this, which are not in the highest interests of humanity, for sure. And I say that with great love to those who are doing it. I understand why you think it's necessary. It's funny, Scott Ritter pops into my mind at this point, who said that war was absolutely necessary. I was sitting in the audience going, no, it's not. Warren Katie would say, just put all your negative thoughts down on paper, turn it around, because everything's projection. It's only necessary when you believe that the world, that there is, I was going to say evil in the world, and of course people would say there is, and I would just say it's lack of love is what I would interpret. If you reverse evil, it's to live, isn't it? You can't live when you're evil. It's not a life. The most insecure people would be within that. So I'm just going to go still for a sec. It was to do with global basic income. Everyone's basics are covered. It's to take the fear out of survival is the point of it. Not only that, it creates a level playing field so that people aren't called dole bludgers. So we remove an inequity. We remove inequality through good social design, social economic design, virtues-based design it would be. What this does is frees people up to actually follow what they love. This is the natural urges within the human beings to follow what it is that they love, to not have to work really, really hard to have a few minutes at the end of the day. Most people won't even focus on what they love because they don't have time. And what they love is what gives them a liveliness. This is the passion. This is the reason for living. This is what gives meaning, is when you come into what I call recalibration with who you really are. What enlivens you is how you know. It's what your true purpose is. Some would say that the true purpose is this moment right now. Because I'm free to create this moment. If I was at work, I wouldn't be creating this moment. So all the videos that are on my YouTube channel, Worldpeacefull Empowerment, are only there because I've had the freedom to do them. I've stepped into my own self-determination. I have allowed myself to follow impulses, which some people I note have stated spontaneity is problematic. It's only problematic if you wish to control other people and you don't like the feeling of uncertainty when someone does something unpredictable. We can also cleave mental health disorders on top of spontaneity or diversity and say that there's something wrong with you because you're not conforming. Makes me uncomfortable. Well, in the peace work, we would say investigate what makes you uncomfortable. That's your issue, not the other. Projection would project it out and say there's a problem with you because you make me uncomfortable. This is how the war mentality is created. I have to stop you. You're a problem in order for me to feel good. The law of attraction work would, and I've talked about this before in my videos, would talk about the well-stocked kitchen. Esther Hicks, who is a channel, she has been, what are the words I'm trying to find? What she's received is that imagine a well-stocked kitchen. You've got everything in the kitchen. This is life, the metaphor for life, okay? Or potentiality even. Now, let's say someone comes in and they want a pie, but they don't want Tabasco sauce in that pie, and they start to fixate on the Tabasco sauce. Do not get it in my pie. I don't like it. Can you get the Tabasco sauce away from me? It's making me, it might spill into my pie. Look, get it out of the kitchen. Get rid of it. I don't want the Tabasco sauce. Now, you can use anything on top of this. Could be someone you perceive as an enemy. Could be behaviours that you think are not okay. It could be, worldviews that you disagree with. It could be gender. It could be disability. It could be orientation, sexual orientation. It could be creed. It could be colour, culture. The list goes on. So the Tabasco sauce can be the metaphor for those things we don't want. It could be religious. We don't want that. Let's get rid of it. So we'll go and create problems. Those who cultivate that type of perspective don't understand the law of attraction, clearly. So how would you deal with a kitchen where there's Tabasco sauce and you've got your pie and you don't want the Tabasco sauce in your pie? Or you don't want to be attacked at night walking the street, right? You don't focus on it. You focus on what you're wanting. You focus on eating your pie. For you, the Tabasco sauce is not a problem. And if you live in the moment, it's clearly not, because it's not in your, it might be part of the infinite potential of where you are, but it's actually not, you're not holding on to it. So these are the universal laws. Cause and effect. What you put out comes back. So if you are seeking to develop strategies that suppress, strategies that contain, see, I'm getting military strategy coming into my mind. Flank attacks, full front, I'm seeing their helicopters and, the guys in the combat gear and all that stuff. Makes them look bigger. I'm just going to go into that, the war mentality for a minute. What you fear, you attract, definitely comes to me right now, really quick. What you fear, you attract. If you fear terrorists, you're going to attract them. And then go, see, I told you, self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, no, you've attracted them because you've actually put the thought in other people's minds by televising it worldwide, and then they get notoriety. If you don't want them, you don't focus on them. You focus on peace building. And I note, this is an interesting narrative that we're ongoing today. It's not what I didn't expect to talk about this. Yeah, it's not in taking your country out of, say, UNESCO and saying, well, really what the message here is, we really don't want to affiliate with peace building and peace education around the planet, because we've got an industry that we're promoting. Okay, let me play with this. The UN Human Rights Council, which I've just recently been looking at, and those members who have left, saying everybody there is human rights violators when they do it themselves, but they won't say that. I love the pretense, and this is the denial that many people live with, is we don't look at ourselves, we just look at everybody else. They've got the problem, and we create the story. And then others who don't know any different just go, oh yeah, that sounds right. They're leaving, then it must be true. Critical thinking, of course, would come in and go, is that true? So I want to sit with UNESCO, because I was going to do a video on UNESCO. I probably still will at some point, because I think they did excellent work, done excellent work with little resources. And certain members who don't pay their dues to remain nameless, they know who they are. So I'm going to sit with UNESCO for a minute, and peace building around the world, which is being seen as the enemy in respect of those who wish to push forward with more militarisation through the industrial military complex, because it makes a lot of money. It's great. They don't really worry about the fatalities of the children. It doesn't really matter. Don't look there. Look over there. So but they'd actually say law of attraction is we just look over there. But I want to sit with it in respect of these universal laws. Yeah, what you put out comes back. That's come back to me again. Very clear. Empires rise and empires fall. Is another. Inevitably, it's inevitable, because we're one. And I've talked about this a lot in my poetry and my videos. We're one. It's virtually impossible for those who live in a separated mind to see what I'm saying. I know that. You'll just have to perhaps accept that this is another viewpoint that you may not agree with, and that's okay. We're all here to explore this life, whether, and we will find that there will be plenty that agree or disagree with us, and that's the nature of it. What I see is that those players who are exiting human rights and who are exiting peace building on the planet are really just revealing themselves. And I think that's honest. They don't like the criticism, is the feeling I just got. They don't like being criticised in those particular forums. They don't like what they see, you see, because they know in their hearts that it's not right what they're doing, but the money's too good. They just can't resist the money. And there's such an industry building up around this. Eisenhower warned the world about the industrial military complex, and they were right. And of course, now we're starting to understand more about the deep state, which is the covert operations happening outside of government review. And we've got the other problems of political representatives being purchased by companies. And of course, we've moved from the promotion of national interest, or an action being taken on the basis of national interest, to interests. Those interests can be singular or they can be corporate, but they're definitely in the moneyed area. The interests are those with money who are utilising the militaries in order to secure In the first instance, energy would be the first thing that comes to my mind, to fuel their industry. Literally. That's what they're doing. And because governments don't have power anymore, it's all about the money, which everybody knows. You talk to anybody in society and they're all concerned about the fact that everything's about money. It's right, it is. And the human rights, the human needs, the human condition is just cast to the side. It's a bit of an impediment. These darn human rights, left-wing radicals, makes me think of Pink Floyd, The Wall. Remember that song? Can't remember the name of it, but it's on the album, and you can see, the dictator. They've actually got the legs as they're marching. It's marching in the film. It's all in cartoon. It's very well done. I might actually put a link on the bottom of this video so you can have a look at it. But it's the ridiculing of that individual. It's another brick in the wall. So the wall is the matrix, and you'll see my poem, which I'll probably attach to this. I might as well. I seem to be going there. It's on my mind. And so you've got the dictator who's going, look at that one, he's gay. Look at that one. And they're just being persecuted for their difference. And I've come to understand more about how those who are different from the prevailing viewpoints, who are not conforming, are then typecast as radicals or typecast as rebellious or typecast as dissent, when it's really just diversity. Everybody is different. Some may think very differently. Some may think very similarly. It's the way the world is. But those who have control paradigms, which is their interpretation of order and discipline, it is their viewpoint that this is the way it should be. But life and reality will bring up contexts, contrasts that actually present to them what appears to be an opposing perspective. But in truth, it need not be opposing, it's just different. But when you're insecure and you feel threatened by something that you think could disrupt what the plan is, then you will seek to find ways to silence that. And that's where repression comes from. And it's an old paradigm that's been going for centuries. Very, very brutal in the Middle Ages. It's hard to say what's going to happen in the future, how far this goes, because the technology is way out of hand now in respect of our ability to destroy life on Earth. We can destroy the planet 4 times over with the nuclear weapons. And that's another big problem that we're facing. It's the pink elephant in the room. Do they get corporatized? If we're corporatizing the whole of the democratic structure, which was once all taxes were raised in order for government to distribute services across the entire society, which was what gave the basis of an egalitarian society where it was fairly shared. Things like water, electricity, public transport, education, healthcare, certainly in Australia, was supplied free for everyone. In certainly my childhood, I remember getting on a free bus. I remember education free. Electricity was paid for. Water was free. Gas was free. I think in the very beginning telephones were, but then, there was a cost per call as that got metered. And of course, free energy is the other pink elephant in the room. Nikola Tesla and JP Morgan was the one who shut down the free energy, which would have changed our planet. And they wanted metering, which is what the internet is about. It's about metering things. I saw that very clearly this morning. It's also been communicated on videos too. I have noticed that they want to cost everything out. And there's no hard currency with any of this. So what it means is it's all digital, but the intent is the expansion of commerce. It's not about human beings just talking to each other and getting to know their world. It's not a social instrument, it's an economic instrument. And they're looking at ways and means to profile customers so they can do the demographics on them. They can easily work out what their interests are and then sell to that. But obviously the prevailing, concerns with a lot of this is, penetrating people's private space. It's total satiation of images, advertising, pictures, marketing, tracking, personalizing, in order to maximize sales. I was a market analyst, and of course we used to do market research, but this was always visible, so people can agree to participate in this in order to give their information over. But this type of thing this is totally under the radar for most people. They don't realize just how much they're tracked. Your phone, they know exactly where you are at any given time. Now, some people could say, well, that's not a problem. If I've done nothing wrong, it's fine. Well, if you're dealing with a dictatorial regime over and above all of that, who want you to conform, and let's just say that you've been ignored and told you have no rights, and you'll just do as you're told, and you're going, no, I can't. That doesn't sit with me. That feels wrong. What happens if you get criminalised as a result of that? You may be innocent. If those people who want you into line choose to go down that pathway, then you can be harmed. And that comes from the means to the ends. It's, if you want maximum profits, the means you're going to do this is utilise various IT techniques in order to code in ways and means to track and accumulate data and produce products in response, even though the demand signal, which would be, I want to buy this, that comes at the end, but the demand is actually created through repetitious exposure to that particular item. So there isn't a lot of say over what's put in front of you. It just gets popped up and you're forced to see it. It's worse than television, where you've got the ads, the non-stop ads. I remember when I was young, the ads only went for, I think, 10 minutes, if that. It's usually about 4 ads or something, or not even 10 minutes. Oh, no, it would have been much shorter than that, 5. Whereas now you're looking at 15 minutes, and these programs that are only really an hour long go for 2.5 hours, and you're just going, leave me alone. So we get crowded by all this noise, overload, because everyone wants a piece of you. They don't care about you, they just want the money, or the digital money. So everything goes online, cash goes out of the system so that you can't conduct transactions invisibly. From a corruption point of view, that can be good. It means that maybe drug money is visible, so you can then catch the perpetrators of that dark market. If we were dealing with really positive governance over systems like this, the debits and credits could be terrific from the point of view of simply seeing what people do, their activity, and if it's visible to the public, which would be good. In other words, people see what you're buying. That would be a transparency. That's a bit different from certain groups gathering data. So if you're engaged in behaviours that are really destructive, that would be made visible. I can see merit in that. I can't see merit in various multinational companies, such as the IT industry, having too much control over the data, which in effect controls people's lives. And the flip side to that is self-determination and living out a life of your dreams, not someone else's dreams, which has been the paradigm all along. We've had a very selfish existence as human beings on the planet. And that's not a judgment, that's just an observation. I've been selfish too. We haven't really evolved very far, and as far as recognising that what we do to others, we do to ourselves. We don't see that yet. We see everything as separate, and we only care about what impacts our world. Anything that's counter to that is seen as threatening, which it's not, in truth, if you question your thinking. Byron Katie would be great for you to go and check out, www.thework.com, which is all about questioning the belief systems which is framing these realities that we call true. That's why I go into the stillness, because I just allow whatever to come up without any influence. So I'm just going to go silent again. You are the freedom that you seek. Freedom's not outside of you. Freedom is within. You are the beauty that you seek. And every single one of you is beautiful. When I clowned around and I looked at all the faces, I can see the beauty. And the beauty is always through the loving eyes. I always see that. I don't care what the person looks like. That is the enlightenment, when you see people's eyes shining. The experience we're going to go through on the planet with this interesting paradigm, which they're saying is the next step in our evolution. I love that. Well, maybe it's going to catapult us much faster than they think when people start to realize what's really going down here. And then they reversing fast. I don't want that. I don't want you surveilling me through my computer. I don't want, you surveilling me through the smart TV and then tracking me on a smartphone, and then I'm driving a smart car. So everything's electronically tracked. No thanks. There'll be a counter movement to privacy and sovereignty and, hopefully self-reliance, growing your own food, build your own earthship, getting off the grid. I think there'll be a counter movement to get off the grid and go closer to nature, as we're kind of programmed already in our DNA to live out our life experience, interestingly enough. And I know from the work I've done on near death, there's definitely a higher order to what we think. And it's very fascinating when you start to move in the direction of what's spiritual, which is the unseen. It's a fascinating space. The freedom is just flowing with it, really. There's no resistance. You just sort of flow with the ideas, as I have with this video. I'm just flowing. I'm just not worrying about anything. Say it as I feel it. What's true, what's not, everyone chooses. I believe personally that love is true. For me, love is what sets you free. When you love people, you will give everything to them. You won't be transacting like we are, because you just want them to have more. That's the generosity and the abundance that comes from living in the heart-based existence. The head-based existence just calculates everything, thinks it through, it detaches from the heart, doesn't care what the outcome is for you. And so there's all this, externality, we'd call it in economics, all the externalities of people who are having mental health issues, isolated, suiciding, that would be ignored as not my problem, that you leave that to government or you aspire it to the NGOs, the non-government organisations. That's their job. You know, I like act out of like the masculine, just do what I want, play on my computer. And the feminine can go sort it. But as I've said in other videos too, the masculine and the feminine are within the one being. And when we integrate the masculine and the feminine, that's where peace arises. So the outward energy of action is the masculine typically. The inward receptive energy, so when I go into stillness, that's a feminine. I'm receiving. I'm just being still enough in the mind to allow inspiration and wisdom to resurface, which is in everybody. But we're all too busy to notice. So if you want solutions to what's going on in the world, just go still and ask for the truth. But don't impose it on anyone. You know, I'm going to go my way. Some will go their way. And who knows, maybe the paths meet somewhere down the track and we laugh. As you are me in a different frequency. When I see that, it's not a question of tolerance. I accept what is. Because everyone's choosing their story. They want to live out what they want to live out. If it's imposed on me, then I will make decisions around that, but it'll always come from my own sense of freedom. But I send love to everybody on this journey. We have to live out according to what we think is true for us. So with that, I'm going to send peace, love, joy, and for you to know that life is the mirror. What do you see when you look in the mirror? Look into your beautiful eyes and you'll get an answer. Much love. Bye.